She was on her knees with the scrub brush still in her hand when he found her, and she did not hear him come in over the sound of her own breathing, which had gone ragged in the way breathing does when a person has been holding something back for a very long time, and the body finally refuses to carry it one step further. The floorboards under her were half scrubbed, a clean wet arc giving way to gray, and the water in the bucket had gone cold an hour ago. Cole Ashby stood in the doorway of his own front room and saw the woman he had hired to clean his house weeping silently into a scrub brush, not making a sound, her shoulders square even now, even alone, even broken, fighting it the way she plainly fought everything. He did not back away quietly the way most men would have. He crossed the room and crouched down level with her on the wet floor, and what he said was not "Are you all right?" because he could see that she was not. What he said, after a long moment, was, "Get up off that floor. You weren't ever meant to be down there." And then, quieter, as though it surprised him to hear himself say it, "Marry me instead. If you have ever held yourself together so long and so hard that you forgot anyone might be watching, stay with me, because this is the story of the woman who came to scrub a floor and the man who saw what it was costing her to stay standing. Subscribe to this channel and stay with me to the end. Drop the name of your city in the comments. I want to see how far this story travels. Now come back with me 3 weeks, to the morning she first walked up the road to the Ashby place with a scrub brush and a secret and nowhere else on earth to go. Her name was Verity Lyle, and she had not always been a woman who scrubbed other people's floors. She had been raised the daughter of a Kansas school teacher, taught her letters and her sums and a good deal more besides, and she had expected a life with books in it. But her father had died of a winter lung, and the debts had eaten the little they had, and Verity at 26 had found herself with no husband, no money, and a body the world had always found too large to forgive. For she had been a big girl who became a big woman, and she had learned every one of the 1,000 small ways a person is made to feel she is too much to be kept and not enough to be wanted. She had taken the only honest work that did not ask her to be small or pretty. She cleaned houses. She was very good at it, the way she was good at everything she turned her steady hands to. And she asked for nothing but her wage and a place to sleep, and she had learned not to expect even gratitude. She had come to the Ashby place because the agency in the river town said a rancher out past the breaks needed a house set right and would pay fair and ask no questions. And the part about asking no questions had mattered to Verity more than the wage, because Verity Lyle was carrying a secret of her own up that road, and she could not afford a man who asked questions. The thing she carried was this: she was not only running toward work, she was running from a man. Back in the river town, there was a freighter named Dax Mallory who had decided some months back that Verity belonged to him whether she would or no, and who did not take a closed door for an answer, and who had told her plainly the last time that there was no place far enough she could go that he would not come and collect what he considered his. She had left in the dark with one bag. She had taken work 2 days' ride out past the breaks, precisely because it was far and quiet, and a man might not think to look there. She told no one. She kept her own counsel, the way she kept everything, with both hands. The stage driver who carried her the last leg gave her the lay of the place she was bound for, the way stage drivers do. Cole Ashby runs the Ashby Spread alone, has done 2 years now since his brother died. He'd shaken his head. Strange business, that. The two of them ran it together, Cole and his brother Jonah, and Jonah was the one with the easy way about him, the one folks liked, and then one autumn Jonah just wasn't there anymore. Cole said he'd gone east, but there's a room in that house been locked these 2 years, and Cole Ashby don't speak his brother's name, and a man don't lock a door on a brother who simply moved away. He'd glanced at Verity. "I'd not go poking. Was I you? Whatever's behind that door, that man means it to stay there. Keep to your floors and your wage, and you'll do fine." She had meant to. She had every intention of keeping to her floors and her wage and her own secret, and getting through. But the Ashby house, when she came to it, was not the simple cleaning job the agency had promised. It was a sound house with a wound in it, which is a particular thing to live inside of. The barns were kept and the stock was healthy, because a man can pour himself into the work that has nothing to do with the inside of a house. But the house itself had the look of a place its owner only passed through on his way to somewhere he'd rather be. There was a fine front room with the furniture pushed back against the walls as though no one was expected to sit in it. There were 2 chairs at the kitchen table, and one of them never moved. And down the back hall there was a door, plain and shut, with 2 years of dust on the latch and a key, Verity noted without meaning to, that hung on no peg in the house. A door locked from somewhere she could not see. The kitchen told the rest, the way kitchens do. The range was choked with cold grease and old ash. The pantry was a bachelor's poverty, coffee, salt pork, hardtack. Nothing that took the time a person takes when there is someone to feed. And on a shelf above the table, 2 coffee cups stood side by side, one of them turned face down and never lifted. The way a man sets aside a cup he cannot bear to fill and cannot bear to put away. Verity Lyle set down her scrub brush and looked at all of it and understood that she had walked into a house holding its breath. Then she rolled up her sleeves, because work was the one thing in her life she had never been ashamed to do. Cole Ashby was not cold the way grieving men are cold. He was watchful and quiet and fair past the point of most men. He paid her the first week's wage in advance without being asked. And he carried the heavy water himself when he saw the size of the buckets. And he told her plainly which rooms she might clean and which she might not. And the back hall was the one she might not. He did not explain it. She did not ask. They were, she recognized after a day or two, 2 people each guarding a locked door. And there was an odd unspoken comfort in being near someone who understood without being told that some doors stay shut. She set the house right around the wound in it. She scoured the range to its true black iron. She cleared the pantry and filled it, and on the 3rd morning she baked bread. From a crock of starter she had kept alive through everything, and the smell of it went through that breath-holding house like something coming back to life, out the window and across the yard to the corral, where Cole Ashby stopped with his hand on the saddle and stood very still, like a man hearing a sound he had stopped letting himself hope for. He came in at noon and stopped 3 steps inside the door. He did not look at the bread. He looked at the 2 cups on the shelf, the upturned one and the one turned down, and then at the steam on the window, and for a long moment he could not seem to look anywhere at all. Verity cut the heel off the first loaf and set it buttered at his place and gave him the dignity of her back. She heard the chair. She heard the long quiet. When she turned, the plate was clean and he was at the window with his back to her, his shoulders set the way a man's are when something is moving in him he has not given leave to move. "When did you last eat a meal somebody made for you in this house?" she asked. It was a while before he answered. 2 years, he said. He had not meant to say it. He went back out to the cattle, and that night, after Verity had gone to her cot, she heard him on the porch, and in the morning the cracked pane in her little window had been replaced with sound glass, and the draft was gone, and he never said a word about it. Neither did she. It went on like that for the better part of 2 weeks, the house warming around them, 2 guarded people finding the wordless rhythm of shared work, And Verity Lyle, who had not let herself want anything in years, felt a small, dangerous warmth growing in her that frightened her more than Dax Mallory ever had. Because Dax she knew how to run from, and this she did not. And then came the afternoon she was found crying on the floor. It had not been the work that broke her. It was a letter. The post had come out from town with a supply wagon, and in it, addressed to her in a hand she knew, was a single line from a friend back in the river town. "He knows where you went. He's coming." Dax Mallory had found the thread, and he was coming for her, 2 days behind the letter at most. And there was no place left to run to that he would not also find. And Verity Lyle had sunk down onto the half-scrubbed floor of the Ashby front room and let herself weep for exactly as long as it took the water in her bucket to go cold. Her one collapse, her single permitted moment, the thing she allowed herself once and never twice. And that was the moment Cole Ashby walked in. She did not tell him about the letter at first. When he crouched down level with her and told her to get up off that floor and then said that impossible thing, "Marry me instead," she thought for one wild moment that he had somehow seen the letter, that the proposal was a thing offered out of pity to a woman in trouble. She got up off the floor with her own strength, not his, and she stepped back. And she said, with her chin level even then, that she did not need rescuing and would not be married out of charity by a man who'd found her at a low moment. And Cole Ashby, who was as fair a man as she had ever met, told her the truth, which was that he had not seen any letter and knew nothing of any trouble. He had asked her to marry him, he said, because in 2 weeks she had brought a dead house back to life and asked nothing for it, because she carried whatever she carried without ever once setting it down on him. And because he had watched her hold herself together for 14 days and had only just now, on that floor, understood how much it was costing her. And a man did not let a woman pay that price alone in his own front room if he had it in him to share the weight. "I'm not offering to save you from anything," he said. "I don't even know what's chasing you. I'm offering to stand next to you while it comes." That was when she told him about Dax Mallory. He listened to all of it without his face changing, and when she was done he was quiet a while, and then he said only, "Then he'll have to come through me," in the flat way of a man stating a fact about the weather, and Verity understood that whatever this was, it was not pity, and not rescue, and she said yes. Not because she was afraid, but because for the first time in her life someone had offered to stand beside her without first asking her to be smaller than she was. The midpoint crack opened the very next day, and it came, of all places, through the locked door. Dax Mallory reached the Ashby place ahead of his letters 2 days, because men like Dax do not travel at an honest pace when they think something is theirs to collect. But he did not come alone, and he did not come simply. He came with a paper and a lie, and the lie was a clever one. For Dax Mallory had done his asking in the river town, and he had learned the one thing about Cole Ashby that the whole country wondered at, which was the matter of the dead brother and the locked room, and he meant to use it. He rode into the yard with the county sheriff beside him, a man he had filled full of a story, and he stood in Cole Ashby's yard and announced, loud, for Verity to hear, that he had not come for the woman at all. He had come about Jonah Ashby. He'd heard, he said, that Cole Ashby's brother had not gone east 2 years back. He'd heard there was a locked room. He'd heard a man might find something behind a door like that worth a reward, and he aimed to have the sheriff open it, and if the woman happened to be standing there when an old killing came to light, well, a man could not be blamed for the company a murderer's house kept. It was a lie built to do 2 things at once, to break Cole Ashby with the one accusation he could not bear, and to leave Verity with nowhere to stand but at the side of a ruined, suspected man. at which point Dax meant to offer her generously a way out and back to him. And Verity watched the color go out of Cole Ashby's face and watched him not deny it, and understood that the locked door was about to be opened by the wrong hands for the wrong reason, and that the man she had agreed to marry was about to be destroyed by the very secret he had trusted her enough to keep without ever explaining. She did not wait to be rescued, and she did not let a lie open that door. She stepped between Cole and the sheriff, and she said, in the level voice of a schoolteacher's daughter who knows the weight of words, that if the room was to be opened, it would be opened honestly, by the man it belonged to, in front of witnesses, and not by a freighter with a grudge and a story to sell. And she looked at Cole and said, "Lo, so it was almost only to him. Whatever's in there, it's lighter shared than locked. I'd know. I carried mine up your road." And Cole Ashby looked at the woman who had said that, and took the key from wherever he had kept it these 2 years, and opened the door himself. There was no body. There was no killing. There was a room kept exactly as a man had left it 2 years before. A bed, a shelf of books, a half-finished letter on a desk in a young man's hand, and on the desk, framed, the photograph of a smiling young man with an easy face, and beside it the legal papers that told the true and ordinary and unbearable story. Jonah Ashby had not been killed. Jonah Ashby had taken sick, a wasting sickness, slow and certain, and had begged his brother not to let the country watch him die by inches, not to let folks remember the easy laughing Jonah as a skeleton in a bed. And Cole had honored it. He had told the town his brother went east. He had nursed Jonah through his dying alone in that back room, and buried him quiet on the hill under a marker that gave no name, and locked the door on the only place his brother still seemed to be, and let the whole country wonder rather than break the promise he'd made to a dying man's vanity and grief. He had not been hiding a murder. He had been keeping a brother's last wish for 2 years at the cost of his own good name, because Cole Ashby was a man who kept his word even when keeping it cost him everything. The sheriff read the papers and the doctor's letter that was filed among them, signed and dated, and the lie Dax Mallory had built collapsed in the dust of the yard, and the sheriff turned on the freighter with the cold disgust of a man who has been made a fool of and used. And it was then, with the door open and the truth standing plain in the afternoon light, and the neighbors who'd followed the sheriff out, gathered watching in the yard, that the witnesses the framework needs were all in place, and the vindication came. Cole Ashby turned from the open door of his brother's room and faced them all, and he had spent 2 years saying almost nothing to anyone, and there in his own yard he spent his words plainly. "This woman is going to be my wife," he said. And he had asked her on the floor, and she had said yes by then, so it was true in every way the word was meant to mean. She set this house right when it was holding its breath, and she stood between me and a lie just now, without being asked. And there's not been a soul brave enough or true enough to do that for me in 2 years. He looked at Dax Mallory last, and the sheriff's hand was already on the freighter's arm. "And as for you, you rode 2 days to call a dying man's mercy a murder, so you could frighten a woman back into your hands. The sheriff's got questions for you about a freight contract that went missing in the river town. The road back is the way you came, and you'll be riding it in front of him." Then, quieter, to Verity, in front of all of them, "Nobody's collecting her. She's not a thing to be collected. She's the woman who's going to take up every inch of this house with me, and there's not enough room in it yet for all I mean to give her." It was the most anyone in that valley had heard Cole Ashby say in 2 years, and it was not long, and that was why it landed the way it did. Dax Mallory rode back to the river town in front of the sheriff, and into a reckoning of his own, and he did not trouble Verity Lyle again. The neighbors who had come expecting to find a murderer's house found instead a story of a man who'd kept faith with his brother to his own cost. And they went home ashamed of 2 years of wondering, and the country never again whispered about the locked room, because they had all stood in the yard and watched it open, and there is no unseeing a thing like that. Spring came up the breaks late, and then all at once. The back room was not locked anymore. Cole opened the window of it and let the air move through, and put fresh flowers on the desk by his brother's photograph, and spoke Jonah's name easily now, having learned that a beloved name is kept by the saying of it, and lost only in the silence. The 2 coffee cups came down off the shelf, and the one that had been turned down for 2 years was righted and filled, and a person sat in the chair that had never moved, across the table from him, every morning. In time there were children in that house who knew their Uncle Jonah only as a smiling young man in a photograph and a name their father said with love, and who grew up in rooms where no door was ever locked against them. Verity Ashby baked her bread every morning of her life from the starter she had carried up that road with her secret, and the smell went out the window and across the breaks and down the road, and travelers passing would lift their heads and wonder who lived out past the breaks and ate so well. The country was what it had always been, wide and old and indifferent, taking what it took without asking leave, keeping its secrets under the grass and giving the grass back green each spring. But there was a sound house past the breaks, with a warm range in it, and no locked doors, and a woman in it who had stopped, somewhere between a cold scrub bucket and an open door, holding the whole weight of her life alone. She had come up that road on her knees to scrub a stranger's floor, carrying a secret she thought she would have to carry by herself forever. She had risen off that floor by her own strength, and married a man who asked her to stand beside him rather than shrink beside him, and helped him open the one door he could not open alone. And she had come to understand at last that she had never been too much to be kept. She had only never, until then, met anyone with the sense to keep her. And she stayed.